is Sky News Real Estate. Smart Investing.
Hello and welcome to Smart Investing. I'm Chris Gray. On tonight's show, most real estate agents get into real estate because they love property and they love helping people. But within just a few short months, they're destined to hate both. So what is it about real estate that brings out all the crazy people? Now, why does buying and selling property make everyone feel unhinged, and what can agents do about it? And real estate is becoming a team sport, so is the idea of a rock star agent dead? Well, joining us tonight to talk about those comments and more is Kylie Davis, Head of Content and Product Marketing at CoreLogic, and Charles Tarbey, Chairman and Owner of Century 21 Australasia. Welcome to the show, guys, and this is the first time I'm officially blind and I can't read my notes, so we'll see how we go with glasses this week.
Okay, lovely. Gentle.
Now, Kylie, what is it about real estate that makes everyone go crazy?
So I think what a lot of people don't realise with real estate is that it's actually about the people, not the property and the product of the property. And what we see in real estate is that there's a whole lot of psychology going on at the same time, and there's a phenomenon called that Maslow started up, which is 5 different layers, and basically it says that you can't be rational and sensible and self-actualised as a human being if you've got stuff going on at the base layer where you're feeling really insecure. So property and having a roof over your head, having security, having, you know, food and comfort and all those sorts of things are one of our sort of primal triggers that makes us really anxious, even if we're trying or if we're conscious of it. But at a base level, it really means that we struggle.
Is this Maslow's theory of hierarchy?
Yeah, the hierarchy.
I've read about this, years and years.
It's been around for a long time.
Yes, it has.
But we haven't actually ever thought about it.
Housing is a very important part of Maslow's theory, Chris.
Now,
he recognised, I hope he brought real estate back when he created the theory.
Yep.
Now, Charles, you've been in real estate for probably not as long as him, but for a reasonable amount of time. Have you met a few crazies in your time?
Well, I am one. I'm still doing it after 46 or 47 years. I must be one of the crazy ones. It's really fascinating when you talked about agents and it's about people, not property, which was one of our slogans many years ago, because it really is. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of agents have been pushing over the last couple of years, I need more listings, I need more listings. Of course, now that old saying, be careful what you wish for, because many of them have got listings and they don't know what to do with them because they've never been in a real estate environment where you actually have a property that sits for a period of time, and now you've got to communicate with people. It's not a matter of just selling it, putting it on the market and sell straight away. So it's a very interesting change we're going through right now.
Because it happens in so many industries, because I used to be in recruiting before, and you've either got lots of people, that companies that have got jobs and you're trying to get the listing, effectively the same as real estate, or you've got lots of candidates that you can fill those jobs. But you've never got equal amounts of both. And the same thing has happened in real estate literally in the last 6 to 12 months. Yeah,
but it's moving towards, I mean, we're now really in a service economy, and when you're offering service to people, it's really about the relationships that you have with people. And so what we see about the complaints about real estate agents that are the most dominant are, the complaint is always, I don't feel I can trust the agent, or I didn't feel that agent understood me. And that's not sort of saying they didn't find the right house or they didn't necessarily get the right price for my property. We know from our research that you can get the right price for a property but still have someone say, or a vendor say, that you gave them awful service because you failed to relate to them on a human level. And so, and we know too that there's some new research out recently that basically shows that when people are anxious, you completely lose the ability to be rational and to manage your emotions and things like that. And a lot of that goes on.
That is a really difficult part of the process, Kylie, when you think about the fact that you are acting for the seller, but you've got to try and maintain a relationship with the buyer. And you have to draw the line at some point, and often buyers become offended by that process. But from a legal point of view, we don't have a choice as real estate practitioners, because of who we're acting for.
So, Kylie, do you think the agents understand this psychology? Do they know who Maslow is, and do they know what's really going on?
No, I don't think they do yet. I mean, I think some of the smarter agents and some of our best performing agents kind of know it on a subliminal level, or they have recognised it and they understand there's things in their business that they can do that will manage it better in the business, or they see it in terms of offering a good service. But I think really helping people understand, or thinking about the psychology, and then maybe adopting your services to make sure that when people are in these kind of highly emotional emotional states, that you've got a way of managing them in that state. You know, in the same way that we have scripts and dialogues, or we have ways of talking to vendors through kind of key decision points, or buyers through key decision points, talking them through key emotional points or key psychological points.
That itself is a really good point. I should say that Maslow talked about food and shelter, not property, but I just put the property attachment to it. When you talk about the scripts and dialogues and so on, one of the big processes for me as a real estate practitioner when I was in the streets working was what we call seller education. And we discovered over a period of time that there were 11 things that went wrong in private treaty and 6 things that went wrong during auction.
Yep.
They didn't all go wrong, but one of those 17 things would go wrong at some point in time.
Absolutely.
And so we would sit down and educate our sellers about those 11 things if it were private treaty. We'd then send a letter to them confirming those 11 things. And invariably, and they were connected to our diary or calendar platform, and invariably 1 or 2 of those things would go wrong. And a seller would say, well, we were told that, we knew that might happen. Yeah. And it changed the entire relationship with people. Yeah. And we encourage our agents to continue down that path of seller education around those items that can go wrong.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned a lot of the best performing agents, I guess, know a lot of their stuff. And from where I've been to Real Estate Institute things, then around the main capital cities, there's a lot of education for the agents. There's so many people putting functions on, whereas when you get out into the country, it's a lot harder, isn't it, for those people in regional Australia?
It is, but luckily there's a lot of webinars, a lot of online training now that really is delivered to these people, and of course they can subscribe like many do to Tom's coaching, so they can hear Tom every Sunday night with his lovely rant that he likes to do, as well as all of the people he brings to them through interviews that he does.
So there's almost no excuse these days not to be educated.
None at all. None at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Collie, do you think there's a big difference in terms of the service that the agents are offering and the service that I guess the buyers and the sellers actually need?
Yes, I think there is in too many transactions. So, and I think that we can see in our research that a lot of about 30% of the market of vendors feel that they've had excellent service from their agent. So that leaves 70% who haven't, and another 30% say it's good, but you know, it could have been better. And when you start to break down why wasn't it what made it excellent versus what wasn't excellent about it, it really is about the quality of the relationship that the agent had with the vendor. So how well they communicated, how much empathy they showed, how prepared they left their client in terms of what could go wrong and what they would do if that happened. And we know that that's one of the key things that really helps people's psychology and stops them being crazy, is like Charles said. Yeah.
You know, a very famous author, had a chapter heading in my first book, and it's been there for 20 plus years. It's a mantra we live by. If you build a relationship, the conditions become negotiable. And I think that most agents that come into the industry now, or in the last few years, they didn't build those relationships. They were in there doing business, and there were not a lot of need for negotiating, because the industry just took care, or the market took care of itself. But now you're back in that marketplace where those relationships are critical. And some people are saying relationships aren't important, but I firmly believe that is what sustains a good real estate practitioner and their reputation.
Carly, so what can agents do to make the buyers and sellers feel less anxious during the process?
Well, I think recognise that it's a really stressful time. That's one thing to recognise, and recognise that there are behaviours that you need to manage as part of that. I think what Charles recommended and what we know from the research really does work is to sit down with either with your sellers, or even provide some information to buyers to say, this is what the process looks like. This is, you've only done this once in 7 years or once in 15 years, but we do it every single day. So we know what does or is likely to can happen. So when that happens, it's okay, we've seen it, this is how we resolve that and fix it and move on. Because what people want to feel from their agent as they hand over the sale of their largest family asset is that agent has got their back, and that agent is going to protect them from anything terrible happening to that, and that agent is going to guide them through the process into their, into the point where their property is sold and they're looking for their new home.
That takes a lot of effort.
It does.
And people people talk about agents and how much they're paid, and there's lots of discount firms out there right now saying you shouldn't pay an agent, but there's a really significant process, and that's what you're describing right now, and that's not something that can be done overnight. This is a process of guiding people through sometimes a series of months.
Yes.
And unless you're paid accordingly, unless a business can be sustainable, those sorts of services are going to go out the door. So if people are looking for a real estate agent because their fees are cheaper, they're not going to get what you're talking about. They're not going to get that service.
No, they're not.
And that's the thing is, because I think both agents and buyers agents as well, we get very blasé talking about a million here and a million there because we're dealing with those numbers all the time. But as you say, it does take a long time, just like, say, for a mortgage broker, for instance, the amount of time it takes people to actually do that transaction, to do it properly, it isn't a 5-minute job.
No, and you're often, and I always say this to people, those that are really truly professional real estate practitioners understand that when you're out at a listing presentation talking to sellers at 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night because they've got to work during the day, you're not with your family. And this industry takes a lot out of agents, their emotion, their lifestyle, being with their kids and being around events that are important. And I went through that for many, many years, and it is incredibly difficult to balance. And this is another area where a lot of people just don't appreciate what it's like to be a real estate practitioner.
Yeah. Well, in about 2 weeks, I'm doing keeper for a day at the zoo. Maybe we should get some of these buyers and sellers to do an agent for a day. And
who's going to be looking after who?
That could make a great reality TV show.
Exactly.
I want to know who's going to be looking after who at the zoo.
Now, Charles, let's jump to the auction clearance numbers. What's happening there?
Yeah, and I've got some great news for you too, because when you see the chart come up, you'll notice that there's our new branding has come out for Century 21. It's a global rebrand that we're doing, and we're focused on C21. So no longer will you have any problems saying Century 21. You won't have to say it anymore.
C20. Have we got some new suits coming out as well?
No new suits. So the auction clearance were really interesting again, actually slightly up on this time last week. 56.9% was the clearance rate, but this time last year that was 68.9%. So there's still a big difference between the two. And the capital cities such as Sydney had 701 auctions, and their clearance rate was 55.8, and Melbourne, their auction numbers were 988. So and the clearance for them was slightly higher than Sydney at 57.8%. The key ingredient here that I need to point out is that both of those capital cities are a lot lower than this time last year. So if anybody's saying those numbers are good, they are, but there's a massive change. And the capital city that had the best was Adelaide at 72.7%. And it's had, week on week, a better performance than this time last year. It's the only capital city that's been consistent. Canberra and Perth were higher this time than this time last week, but Adelaide's been the most consistent when it comes to auction clearance rates.
Now, you've lost the gold jacket. What are the colours now? Is it black and...
black and grey, and gold is still up for it. And gold's still a beautiful colour, and
it's a very modern gold.
A lot of our people still wear it.
I still remember that jacket that you gave me for Christmas
I did too, yeah. I'm a nice guy.
What's happening with the homes advertised for sale?
My modesty prevents me from telling you how nice I really am. Well, houses for sale are a negative 1.33% week on week. However, over this time last year, they're 5.96% up. So again, we have nearly 6% higher in stock than this time last year, with a lot less activity. So all of that's lending itself to that decline in price movement around most of the country. Some areas are still okay, but that decline that we probably needed this time last year rather than now, but it's kicking in. It's kicking in slowly and nicely.
Yeah. And moving on to the rent price movements. Yeah,
rent price movements. Here's the interesting one. Over January 2015, Hobart is up 25.55% in rent prices. Perth is negative 20.51%, and Sydney is only up 4.44% in that 3-year period. So that gives you an idea of the changes that have occurred around the marketplace.
OK, and finally, just the vacancy rates.
4.01 for consolidated 3 capital cities, Perth 9.82%, 8.92%, and Melbourne 0.49%, Sydney 2.63%.
Wonderful. Thanks for those updates. Well, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back soon.
You're watching Sky News Real Estate, Smart Investing. Welcome back to Sky News Real Estate, Smart Investing.
Welcome back to Smart Investing. Well, the recent ARIC Real Estate Conference hosted a range of speakers who talked about how real estate is becoming a team sport. So is the idea of a rock star agent dead? Now, this is where we really need Tom Panos. I think he's in Darwin speaking.
Where is, I thought he was going to be.
That is Mr. Rockstar Agent of educating everyone. So the ARIC Conference is obviously something put on by McGrath.
Yep.
Tom's always speaking there and hosting it. So I think you were there as well, and it's all changing, is it?
Yeah, we heard from a lot of speakers who talked about, well, a lot of the stuff that Charles mentioned before, that being an agent is quite lonely, that it involves a lot of late nights and it involves, an awful lot of effort and process if you want to give a really good service. And look, every industry is always going to have its high flyers, but what we're seeing is sort of the industry starting to turn a corner where it's not just about everybody aiming to be that rock star and to be the lone wolf and to be the one that goes out and does it completely differently. But in fact, as an industry, if we really want to raise service standards and we want to, also service buyers in some way that doesn't offend or isn't a problem with vendors, but if we want to offer increasingly better service, then you need to be able to scale your rock star, or you need to be able to scale your best performer and put a really good team around him or her that lets them do more work and service more people to a much higher level.
It's pretty hard, though, if you want to be a rock star agent, you've got to maintain that. You've got to build that profile first, and then you've got to maintain that. So you spend a lot of your time maintaining than you do actually putting effort in. I was watching Fox the other night, Sky the other night, and they talked about $1 million agent, New York $1 million agent.
Yeah.
What are they going to sell, a block land northwest sector of Sydney? $1 million? Well, $1 million agent's nothing anymore. I mean, if you're going to watch that show now, they're selling properties lower than the median price of properties.
And they're almost doing kind of $1 billion transactions.
Yeah.
But I think the thing has always been is that $1 million income effectively thing, which for Australia is still, that's still a large amount of commission. There isn't that many agents doing $1 million personal income.
Well, no, there isn't, and many of them do it with a team.
Yeah.
And so...
but it's just in the past, they're always known as that one person,
Yep.
but there's no way that they would have been able to do it themselves. They need a massive team, social media, assistants, open homes,
Yeah,
the whole lot.
People who are looking, young staff who are thinking about coming into becoming a real estate agent. In the old days, we would have sort of thrown them at a desk and just given them either a Rolodex or a service and said, just go and do some cold calls or go and knock on doors. Whereas what we're seeing in the new team structure is where they bring these young kids in and they make them a buyer's agent or they make them a buyer support person for the first year or two, and they have to learn everything that's on the market, and they have to take them, identify which properties, as buyers come in, which properties on the books might work for them, and really look after them. And in doing that, they learn the market, they learn, how to give really great customer service, and they also then sort of build their chops and learn skills that can then turn them into a better sales agent.
So they then need to educate the buyers and sellers to say that John Smith, the top-selling agent in the suburb, you're not actually going to spend all your time dealing with him because he's got 20 listings. You're going to have to deal with the siblings at the same time.
Certain time. But there's something else about this $1 million thing, Chris. Some agents are on higher commissions than other agents.
Yes.
So, you might find an agent working in a location where they've negotiated a very high percentage. So if you've got 100% commission, they might have negotiated 70% for themselves. Somebody working just like twice as hard as them on 45 or 50%. So I don't really get into this dollar thing. For me, when perception meets reality, reality comes off second best, because I've seen so much of that perception rubbish going on social media, and I just think that this making $1 million is not what it's about. Never has been, should never be. It's short-term thinking. It's about building your client base, establishing a client base, maintaining those relationships, and the greatest gift you could have is when the grandchild of the person you sold your first home to is buying their property off you. That's what it's about. The money side of it is part of it, but if that's what's important to people, then, money, you can see it in people's eyes, and it just, you shouldn't focus on that.
Tom calls it commission breath.
Commission breath.
When you get
you can tell straight away they're after money. But also, I guess you could have a lone agent that's billing $500,000, say, doing it all by himself, versus someone billing $1 million, but they've got a team of 10 people, that actually their take-home is actually half the amount. So it's all the perception.
But unfortunately, at various awards right across the country, and now dozens of companies doing real estate awards, it's all about that perception.
Yeah.
Bottom line is really the key, but you're never going to see that.
Exactly. Some good old ethics and morals in real estate. That's what we want to see, isn't it,
Stop
Charles?
laughing when you say that. Stop laughing when you say that.
Well, we'll see if we can come back to some of this in a second. But I know you've got a property that you're filling in for Tom that you're going to take us through.
And you would not believe it. How coincidental is it that it's a Century 21 property? It's a C21.
I thought it's C21.
Well, I'm helping you out here for the moment. It's a C21, Century 21 property. It is definitely...
Were you far away, Charles?
It's in 15 Clare Castle Retreat in Mindarie. And for people who don't know where Mindarie is, it's 36 kilometres roughly north of Perth, and Mindarie Keys on the water and on the ocean. It's a stunning, stunning area. And the property itself is really, really beautiful. Now, there's a price guide here of around 2.95 from 2.95. But we're talking about a property with 5 bedrooms. We're talking about a property with 4 bathrooms, 4 living areas, double garages, in addition to a boat garage. So it's got its own area there where you've got your own private mooring. These are all the things that are right up your alley, Chris. As you know, I know you love your boats. But you look at how stunning that particular property is. It's got high quality features right throughout it. But you've got ocean and Mindarie Marina views. And those people who haven't been to Mindarie or Mindarie Keys, it's a really wonderful lifestyle area. Shopping, significant restaurants. It's just one of those areas, as I say, it's only 36 kilometres north of Perth, and you're getting properties like this on the water with ocean and water views. I mean, you just can't get it with.
And I think for that, I'll probably need to move to Western Australia to get it, because to try and get that in the west, in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, might cost me 10 times the amount.
Easily. It's only a few hours flight, Chris.
Yep.
It's only a few hours
Sounds
flight.
good.
And Ray Bay-Akeley from Century 21 office in Clarkson is looking after that property.
Wonderful. Well, a final question just before we finish off for the evening. Based on what we've been talking about today, Charles, if someone was going to join the real estate industry, what is your best tips?
Right, and Kylie touched on it before, and I think about this. For me, it's always been the same thing. If you want to start in a real estate company, start where you're going to get the best training, you've got the best structure and the best advice. Again, if you're going to go in there because, I'm going to go and make a lot of money and this is where I want to work, wrong, wrong, wrong. Short term, money can be made, reputations are not easy to build. And so I would say go to where you're going to get the best education to start with, in my
Sounds like great advice. Charles Tarbey, thanks for joining us. Carly Davis as well.
Thanks.
Now, for more information on buying, selling and investing in property, you can always download a copy of my book for free. Just go to yourempire.com.au. Now, thanks for joining us this evening. Until next week, I'm Chris Gray. Good night.
Information presented on Sky News Real Estate is general in nature. Viewers should seek their own professional advice before purchasing products or services. Sky News Real Estate may receive a fee for commercial arrangements with companies featured in this programming.